Right now, the trend line showed this story where she's doing maybe a little better than she was with a clear path to 270.
She has an absolutely clear path to 270. I would argue at this particular hour, this was the best polling for Kamala Harris, arguably of the entire campaign, because in the states that she needs to win, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the average of the polls do, in fact, show her ahead. And she doesn't need to win any of those southern battleground states if she wins those northern battleground states to get to exactly 270 electoral votes.
All right.
So I think it's fair to say that America likes Kamala. At the beginning of July, Trump was leading Biden, and the lead was growing in the swing states. Now, with a week and a half left in September, Kamala Harris is making a strong case for the end of Donald Trump.
The whole new world. Harry Enton is here to look at what it all means, because it kind of tells a bit of a new story, Harry. And I want to start with Pennsylvania.
I do. And you woke up, you had your dictionary on you when you went to bed last night. All right. So this is in the Keystone State in Pennsylvania. All these polls were released in the last 24 hours. And we see a lot more blue than red on your screen. So Quinnipiac yesterday, +5 in Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris. The New York Times this morning just out a 4-point lead for Kamala Harris. Franklin and Marshall in Pennsylvania, a 3-point margin, a little bit closer. And Marist came out at midnight, or 12:01, came out with a tie. I will also note the Washington Post had a 1-point advantage for Kamala Harris. So the bottom line is there is a range of results in the Keystone State. Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. But it leans in the Harris direction. Not one of these results, even within the margin of error, has Trump ahead.
All right. Before we get to the leans with 3 L's, let's talk about some of these other battleground states.
Yeah, let's talk about Michigan and Wisconsin. All right. So Marist College, Quinnipiac University, all coming out again within the last 24 hours. Well, this is not such a hard slide to digest, because the fact is they both found the same thing in both of the states. Marist and Quinnipiac in the state of Michigan finding Kamala Harris up by 1, and then in Wisconsin, well within the margin of error, but a 1-point advantage in Wisconsin. So the bottom line is, at least in these two important states, these two pollsters find the same thing.
Harry, what do you like to do when we get a whole lot of polling at once? What's the best way to understand it?
What's the best way to understand it? Well, I could throw a bunch of numbers at you like I just did, or we could average it all together. And all right, so this is Harris versus Trump in those Great Lake battleground states. We average it all together. This is all the September polling, not just the ones that I showed you. And what do we see? In Michigan, a 4-point advantage for Kamala Harris. In Pennsylvania, a 2-point advantage. Wisconsin, a 2-point advantage. Again, pretty gosh darn close, but leaning in her direction. And John, you know me. What does this all mean for the electoral map? Well, in the race to 270 electoral votes, keep in mind, Kamala Harris can win with just these northern battleground states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So if we lean all of those blue here, and even if we give Donald Trump North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, Kamala Harris gets to exactly 270 electoral votes. And based upon the polling averages at this particular point, though it is close in those Great Lake battleground states, they do at this time lean a little bit more towards Harris's direction than Donald Trump's direction.
Okay, but that's not all. Not only is Kamala Harris moving forward, but Trump is moving backwards. These 3 Trump moments are hanging in the air like a fart in a compact car.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black.
As strong and formidable a candidate as Kamala Harris is, her strength is also aided by Trump's insane, malignant narcissism. And Americans are growing weary, especially Republicans. A new AP poll from all 50 states asked a variety of questions about Trump and Harris, and it wasn't good for tiny fingers.
Election interfering witch hunt.
When asked who would make a good president, 44% said Harris, with only 36% for Trump. But this next one really hurt. When the respondents were asked who would be tough enough to be president, 59% said Harris. And that surprised me. I mean, this guy isn't tough.
Trump is a sexual predator.
The AP poll then asked who would change the country for the better. Again, 55 to 46% for Harris. Who is more likely to fight for the people like you? 56% for Harris. But this one here tells you the real temperature of the room.
Whoever heard you get indicted for interfering with a presidential election where you have every right to do it.
When asked who would say anything to win the election, a whopping 80% said Trump would lie out his ass under any conditions.
I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal.
Now, that last part was me editorializing, but it's true. Trump's lies have caught up to him, and now they define him.
It's not that he lies a lot, because to lie, you have to do it consciously. He just can't tell the difference. So he makes up what he wants to say at any given time. If it happens to comport with what everybody else sees, well, that's fine. And if it doesn't comport with anybody else, he doesn't really care. And he's had decades of getting away with it.
Harris's greatest asset, other than her experience and her empathy, might be in recognizing an opponent's weakness. When she was quiet and not doing interviews, it was assumed that she might not have what it takes to stand up to Trump. Then the second debate came, and oops, she brought along a huge can of whoop ass, and nothing's been the same since.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
In that one night, she proved strong, knowledgeable, ironic, and totally in control. Trump, on the other hand...
This is communist, this is Marxist, this is fascist. This is a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist. She's a Marxist. She's a fascist.
Tiny Finger's brain is exploding this very minute. Remember when Harris roped-a-doped him? The question was about immigration. Yet when Harris said people were leaving his rallies because they were tired and bored, Trump was like a squirrel?
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Tiny Finger spent the whole time talking about crowd sizes, which, as Obama pointed out, is really about something else. The truth is, after the convention, when Trump tweeted how he hated Taylor Swift, he revealed how little he understands what's going on. Just like in 2018, when the blue wave surged after Roe was overturned, Democrats pounced, gaining 234 seats in the House. But now, with Trump's Project 2025, every other word he says backs the very theme of this Orwellian nightmare.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
It is becoming more and more likely that Republicans will either vote for Harris or sit on their hands. From Liz Cheney to John Bolton, Trump's support is sagging like his tits in a hot tub. That's why Trump's MAGA machine isn't planning on winning, but instead stealing the election by getting SCOTUS to invalidate mail-in votes in the states that Trump loses.
I'm the prosecutor, and he is the convicted felon.
But of course, that all depends on the belief that his support is strong everywhere, even at the craziest levels. Because if Trump manages to twist the results out of the hands of the people, it will be a generational moment. The market could crash and the strong economy will stutter and fall. And if you think 2018 was a turnaround, 2026 could destroy the GOP.
And I heard the scientists say the other day that when a man votes for a woman, he actually transitions into a woman.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what the science says.
Science says that.
It's funny, I was watching Fox, and with the exception of Hannity and Waters, there's a sense that this circus is over. The polls are saying it, Republicans are defecting, and Trump is growing crazier and crazier.
Joe Biden, and now we're giving somebody else. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds. You have people dying financially because they can't buy bacon. Everybody's going to be forced to buy an electric car, which they're not going to do because they don't want that. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever done before. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me.
And Kamala Harris is standing in the wings. She's stronger than him. She's smarter than him. She's more compassionate and understanding than him. And probably the most important attribute of all, she ain't him. And that could just be enough.
Goddamn right.
I'm ready. Let's go.
This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
Trust me.
Shut the f*** up, Darren.
Who's with me?
Oh, yeah, the lie.
Indictable.
Out of sheer morbid curiosity, I'm allowing this freak show to continue.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes!
TikTok!
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.